Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. Today on the podcast, I want to talk about a really interesting concept that might be throwing a serious wrench into OpenAI, Anthropic, and a lot of the other big players in the AI market. And that is the fact that right now, there seems to be a limit that a lot of these companies are hitting when it comes to how fast they can actually improve their AI models. And the big thing that people are talking about here specifically is right now we went from, ChatGPT 3 to 5 with a really big jump. People are concerned and inside the company are having some alarm bells that the jump from 4 to what a lot of people are calling ChatGPT 5, which they've actually changed the naming convention probably to avoid this issue a little bit. They're calling it Orion. They're worried that this is not as significant of a jump. There's some people inside the company, and they're actually having to turn to other solutions to make these models better because of data and compute constraints. So today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down exactly what's going on in the AI landscape, where everything sits with some of these issues, and how people are trying to get over some of these hurdles or roadblocks in compute. We're seeing some really bold predictions by OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, and also from the CEO of Anthropic. So we'll touch on those, but there's some really interesting stuff. Let's get into it. Before we get into it, I wanted to mention, if you haven't already and you're interested in making money from AI tools, I would love to have you as a member of the AI Hustle School community. This is a place where every single week I record an exclusive piece of content that I don't put out anywhere else, and I cover how to use AI tools, how I'm currently making money and growing and scaling my business. There's over 200 members that are from, they've started $100 million companies, and some are starting out brand new companies. So a really wide range of perspectives, but a really incredible community to essentially learn how to grow and scale your business with AI and how to make money with AI tools. So if you're interested in this, you can check it out. There's a link in the description. It's $19 a month. I'll increase the price in the future. But for now, you can lock in that price and it'll never be raised on you. And it's a great community. I'd love to have you as a part of it. All right, let's get into the episode. So a big part of this actually came from an article that was broken by the information. The information always has kind of these juicy tidbits. They interviewed some people inside the company and essentially found out some interesting information. So the big thing here is the challenge. Right now, the increase in quality of, this next flagship model, Orion, or what some people call GPT-5, is not going to be as big as the jump in the last two. Because of this, the entire industry, not just OpenAI, but a lot of other players, including Anthropic, are shifting their efforts to essentially focus on different ways they can improve these AI models, not just the data that goes into it, not just how much compute, but actually software. There's even a really pessimistic opinion that's held by Mark Zuckerberg. So it's definitely an interesting time to be in the industry. But Mark Zuckerberg, he said that in a worst case scenario, he's like, don't worry, there's still like lots of room to build consumer and enterprise apps, different products on top of the current technology, even if it doesn't improve. Okay. This, I, for one, hearing this from, one of the companies, Meta, who is, one of the top 5 leaders in AI and is coming out with really big cutting edge open source AI tools. This is not super optimistic news for me. He's like, don't worry, guys. Like, even if we, don't improve it, there's lots of like apps we can build that are super useful. Yes, there's lots of apps that can be built that are super useful. People are going to make those, but like, we really want the underlying technology to get better. And it's interesting because at the same time, we're having Sam Altman say, we're going to achieve AGI in 2026, I believe, or 2025. So anyways, he's got some really bold predictions, and his predictions are essentially based off of the rate of improvement that we're currently seeing. He's like, look, if you look at, if you look at the Da Vinci model to the O3 model to the O4 model, or, to GPT-4, like these are massive jumps in improvement. And if we can keep this up, we're going to hit AGI by, next year, the year after. And I think that the CEO of Anthropic was a little bit more conservative and said, along the same lines that 2026 or 2027, he expected us to achieve AGI, which, people have different, kind of how they classify that. There's a couple interesting things, though, that I think go into this. A lot of people are really excited and hyped. Sam Altman's the first to say that he believes it's going to take 10,000 days, which I think is, a funny way of saying, but he thinks 10,000 days we're going to have like super intelligence. And, you always post on Twitter, he's like, it's crazy to think we're just 10,000 days away from super intelligence. It's all kind of extrapolating from the same thing. It's interesting because it would appear they have a different definition for artificial general intelligence and a super intelligence. super intelligence is something, they hope to achieve, that it's, knows everything, it can do everything, it can predict everything. It's insane. But what they're focusing on right now is a general intelligence, which is generally smarter than a PhD student and a human and can at all tasks, right? That's what an AGI is. The reason the definition of the AGI is important and achieving it is important for Sam Altman is because as soon as he achieves AGI, he's out of the deal that he has with Microsoft, where they get access to the AI models and they potentially could just claw it back. Now, I bet there's going to be a lot of legal battles around how exactly that plays out and if they can actually classify it as AGI. But anyways, that's his incentive for saying he's going to achieve AGI next year or the year after. And if he's saying he's going to achieve AGI, then the CEO of Anthropic has to also say, hey, look, we're going to achieve AGI too, because they don't want to be like, oh, we're not going to do it for 5 years and make all of a sudden OpenAI look like, the winner. So now all of a sudden everyone's got to say they can achieve it. And I think what's going to happen is essentially we're just going to lower the expectation of what we're calling AGI. So whatever we achieve in a year, he's going to be like, yeah, I told you we'd reach it. This thing's pretty good. It's like, yeah, maybe it's not perfect. But anyways, that's my take on why they have those bolder predictions while it seems like they're struggling. So some researchers at the company, at OpenAI right now, believe Orion, this is the latest model, is not reliably better than its previous version, which is GPT-4. This is not good news if it's accurate. And that's just for certain tasks. So according to this employee that spoke to the information anonymously, Orion is better at different language tasks. So that's good, but it might not actually outperform the last model that they had when it comes to coding and there are a number of other tasks. But this is really important. Coding's a big deal because this has a lot of logic and reasoning that's needed for this. So definitely this could be a problem. Especially when you consider the fact that Orion is going to probably be more expensive for OpenAI to run in its data centers compared to what it currently has on the market. So it's going to be charging more money, and maybe it's better at some language things, but it's not better at coding or everything. This is going to be an issue that they're going to have to try to solve. So right now with Orion, this whole situation is really going to test the assumption of the whole AI industry, which we're all looking at right now, which is the scaling laws. And that is that LLMs are going to continue to improve at the same pace as long as they have more data to learn from and more computing power to essentially facilitate the training process. And this is kind of what Sam Altman and the CEO of Anthropic have both been saying when they're talking about when we're getting AGI. So they're really publicly endorsing this kind of scaling law idea. And so this could be a problem if Orion comes out and it essentially has less improvements, less of a jump. All of a sudden, Sam Altman's timeline and direction for achieving AGI, it gets like lopsided. It's like, well, if we get diminishing returns, it's going to take us way longer to achieve something that's actually that good. So in response to all of these different challenges, the AI industry essentially is shifting how they're addressing the scaling law, their efforts. You have Mark Zuckerberg saying that worst case scenario, we can still build cool tools on top of it. OpenAI is actually baking more, code writing capabilities into their model because they're trying to fight off Anthropic, who's a serious threat. And essentially, they're just developing software that can do a lot of what they need. And Anthropic right now is even going so far as creating software that can take over your computer and complete a bunch of tasks for you. So they're trying to make their AI models more useful. But it's not because the AI model itself is necessarily getting smarter. It's just they're adding extra software functionalities that make them more useful to a person, which is fantastic. But you also need these underlying, we need the models to keep getting better and better because anyone can build the software. But, some of these guys, there's only so many people that have enough resources, talent, and money to make the underlying models better. That's really what we want them to focus on. So what's interesting is everyone's focusing on AGI, everyone's focusing on agents, which is kind of what the next step that we're all taking. There's a researcher over at OpenAI who is Noam Brown, and he gave a TEDx conference last month talking about essentially that these more advanced models might actually become financially unfeasible to develop. So there might come a point when it doesn't even make sense to develop. And this is what he said, quote, "After all, are we really going to train models that cost hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars. At some point, the scaling paradigm breaks down. So this is also interesting, right? Because they keep saying like, hey, look, with more data, more compute, we make these things better and better. But like at some point, is it worth spending $1 trillion to train the latest model? Like, are we getting bang for our buck? Is there an actual realistic trade-off here? So I think these are really fascinating questions. I'm sure NVIDIA is happy with all of them because $1 trillion sounds probably fantastic to them, but a lot of that goes into power and other costs as well. But I would say expect NVIDIA to keep growing and benefiting if this is really where the industry goes. Okay, so OpenAI has done a lot of work with their Orion model. A lot of people are testing it, but right now they have their kind of testing and safety that they're doing right now, and it's quite intensive, and they're still going into it and doing a lot of work on that. So some people also speculate that we are going to be hitting a data wall. This is something a lot of people talk about. So this is one reason that they believe we're going to see a slowdown in the progress of these different models, is because essentially we're getting less and less access. Like the pool of really high quality text and other data that we can give to these AI models is, dwindling. Like we're getting less and less of it. We've used so much of it. There's only so much you can create. Now, some people say the solution is synthetic data. There's a bunch of arguments about that back and forth. So this is an interesting topic, but it's no doubt that new data sets seem to be in short supply at the moment. So in the last few years, LLMs really just use all of the data and text that were on websites, books, and anything else that's been put onto the internet. But yeah, most of that's all been used. So I wanted to talk through just the different steps that an AI model takes. So this is essentially the training process, the testing process that these LLMs go through before they're actually released, just to give you an idea of like where Orion's at and where some of these other models are at and where we're kind of moving to the future. So the first step is setup. That is the data collection and the data pre-processing. So cleaning the data, making sure it's actually usable by these AI models. Next, we go to pre-training. So pre-training happens, there is continuous evaluation going on, and then we go to the evaluation, which is essentially evaluating after the pre-training of that model has done. We then move to post-training, which is essentially introducing a bunch of new data. After collecting and kind of pre-processing happens, you're fine-tuning the models. Then you do reinforcement learning based on kind of human evaluation. So people are testing the models, coming up with like feedback on things that needs to do better or change. And that's where you get the fine-tuning, the reinforcement learning. You then do a pre-release, which is essentially what's happening with the Orion model right now, where you have a pretty decent model, but people have to do safety and that kind of testing, make sure everything's good. And then we get the launch. So we're getting close on the latest Orion model, right? And so when people are giving their speculations on how good it is, it's already been through all of these steps. It's just on the pre-release right now. It's just on the safety testing and some of the further evaluations before they actually do the launch. So we're quite advanced in this. Okay, so one thing that I think is really interesting is the fact that we have Ben Horowitz, so one of the CEOs or one of the founders of A16Z, one of the biggest venture capital funds, who gave a really interesting quote on YouTube recently. He said, "We're increasing the number of graphic processing units used to train AI at the same rate, but we're not getting the intelligent improvements at all out of it." He didn't really elaborate further on it, but it would appear to be, from what he's saying, that they're actually giving it more GPUs, they're giving it more processing power, and the intelligence isn't actually improving. So this is, some people are concerned about this, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So what is the other solution? We've talked about the solution of, adding new software that can kind of do things. So if it's bad at math, you can add like a math software that it essentially queries and it uses that to solve some problems. It's not really the AI model that's doing it. It's just using a math calculator to do stuff. That's a great solution. What other solutions are we talking about? The big one that you've all recently seen is how ChatGPT came out with their O1 preview right now, their ChatGPT O1. And essentially, that is the ability to, when you ask it a question, it runs that question through more compute power. So instead of just having ChatGPT give its straight up vanilla response, it's going to take that response, run it through, and say, okay, test this for accuracy, test this for this, make sure to fact check this, break this question down that they're asking into 7 steps, complete the 7 steps, now put those 7 steps back together, now condense it. They're doing all this stuff in the back end where they essentially have like a really elaborate prompt, really working your question out in a much more elaborate way where they do essentially they work through a thought process. So this is a fantastic tool that is getting it better, but it costs more money. So Brown, who is doing that whole TEDx AI talk recently, was talking about this and said, quote, "This opens up a completely new dimension for scaling, spending a penny per query to 10 cents per query." So essentially, researchers can improve the model responses by just spending more and essentially putting it through more rounds. So Sam Altman also has talked about the importance of OpenAI's reasoning models, which it's kind of like this O1 preview, which can be combined with their LLMs, meaning it's actually not having to retrain a new model to make it better. They're just able to use the same models to get the better results by using more processing. So Sam Altman said, quote, "I hope reasoning will unlock a lot of things that we've been waiting years to do. The ability for models like this to, for example, contribute to new science, help write a lot more very difficult code." He was talking to developers back in October and was going over all of this. We're seeing that with more time, and being able to essentially run the prompts and the outputs through more AI models and giving them more time and compute actually does increase the accuracy, which is great. But it's not perfect. The one thing that I will say that is great with all of this is just the fact that while we might be hitting some sort of plateaus on some of the models, being able to run things like run this prompt through 10 different things and make sure to pick the best and refine it with each one and go through the thought process and different steps, like that makes it better. And we essentially can just keep doing that over and over again. Okay, take this prompt and run it through 100 times, and now it's going to get marginally better than 10 times. So while it does get really expensive, you can get better results from this. Now, this is what we're kind of currently doing to get around some of the limitations we have. But I think at the end of the day, we need to confront the limitations head on and say, how do we actually get the foundational models better? That's the big thing. Without spending $1 trillion on compute, a lot of that is making the model training more efficient, getting energy costs down. There's a lot of things that we need to do to essentially unlock this, and a lot of roadblocks that we have to get through. But it's a very fascinating time to be in AI, and it's a serious problem that people are grappling with, which is that the AI models appear to be having a slowdown in improvement just based off of more compute and more data. And so we're going to have to come up with solutions for this. So exciting time to be alive. I don't think that this means they're permanently stuck in limbo or a plateau, but we're going to have to come up with new creative ways to grow. It's not just the same old we've been doing for the last 2 years. We now need to come up with new solutions. So definitely exciting. I'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the AI industry and everything that I'm seeing here. So again, if you're interested in making money with AI tools, make sure to go check out the AI Hustle School community, an incredible place. And also make sure to go and get on the AI Box waitlist if you're interested in building your own AI tools and using our playground that lets you access tons of different AI models, all for one subscription cost. So you can go to aibox.ai, link's also in the description, to get on our waitlist for that, which will be launching shortly. Thanks so much for tuning into the podcast today. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you next time.